Welcome, everybody, to another UDF LinkedIn live session. And today on the wonderful topic of belonging and purpose. And as you can imagine, I'm very excited about that topic. But before I'm going to introduce you to our wonderful guests today, I would just like to take a minute to remind you on that next week, our masterclass, the Fast Track Masterclass, is starting on July 16th. And it's a 3 weeks long masterclass, 2 days a week. And if you want to enhance your org design skills or bring it into your organization or get closer to being certified, this is your call. Mila put up the slide here, and she will also put the link to sign up to the masterclass in the comments. So feel free. And also, we are just 2 months away from our annual conference this year in wonderful Budapest in Hungary, the 19th and 20th of September. I'm very excited about that. So if you want to have a reunion and we're all going to meet up and advance the field of org design together, please sign up. Mila is going to put the link somewhere down there in the comments. Get your ticket, and I'll see you there. So, but now let's dive into the topic, and I'm very happy to introduce you to Ilaria and Giovanna from 6 Seconds, 6 Seconds Europe. Yeah, there you are. Hi, Giovanna. Ciao,
Hi,
Ilaria.
Milene. Hi, thank you for inviting us. Hello, everybody.
It's so great to see you too. And we already had like really nice conversations up front. So I'm really excited. We're building up to this moment today, and I would just like to start with giving the word to you two to introduce yourself a little bit, and then we dive into the topic together. Who wants to start? Maybe, yeah, you go.
I will go. So thank you again. Welcome, everybody. My name is Giovanna Severnini. I'm the EQB's Manager Europe for 6 Seconds. EQB is, just for you to know, is the corporate division at 6 Seconds. So we talk with organizations and companies.
Hello, everyone, and
Ilaria, you're muted.
okay, I hope now you can hear me. Okay, great. So thank you, EODF, for the invitation. First of all, we are really so excited to be here. Thank you, Tina. And I am the social impact manager and account manager for at 6 Seconds Europe. And 6 Seconds is this leading organization, worldwide organization in emotional intelligence. And we are present all over the world, but we are here for the region Europe today.
Thank you, you two. And we were thinking up front, like, what are the most important topics at the moment, right? Like, how do we design organizations that are impactful, that are healthy, that are sustaining for the future? And what role does emotional intelligence play in all of that, right? So I know you two were preparing quite a lot to to practically give your approaches and methodologies and tools to our community, and maybe also with some practical case studies. And I think it will be very interesting. So I would suggest if you just want to share a little bit what you have prepared, and then I will come in and ask questions, and we'll also encourage our community to put their questions in the comments, and then Milena is going to pull them up. So we even have more to talk about. So the stage is yours.
Thank you, Tina. Ilaria, are you with us?
It seems like Ilaria is frozen, right? So we did have some technical problems today with our platform, like StreamYard, Google, and everything didn't really want to work together today. Let's see if we can get Ilaria back.
Apparently no. She left.
Joanna, would you like to maybe make a start, and then Ilaria can jump in whenever she is back?
Yeah, of course, talking about 6 seconds and talking on the behalf of 6 seconds, we usually start our chat, our conversation, asking people how they feel in this moment, if they feel I don't know, safe, driven, energized, engaged. And I have to admit that today, due to these technicalities issue, I feel a little bit freaked out, excited, but also freaked out. And okay, apparently Ilaria is back, so she can share with us how does she feel today before to start a deep dive into the conversation.
I love that.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if it is my connection, if it's the link. I don't know. Anyway, I'm really sorry. And the question was how I feel about also the webinar. I think that this is a great opportunity for all of us to really connect with the feelings of designing with heart in mind. So with this inspiring maybe way to belong to an organization and somehow to be even more connected to our own purpose with the purpose of the organization. So I'm feeling thrilled and excited to be here, despite the technical issues.
And linking back to the topic of today that Lynn introduced, purpose and belonging, when I'm used to talk with organization, the easiest way for me to talk about purpose and belonging is to talk about engagement. And since I'm talking with organizations, so very rational people most of the time, I used to introduce the engagement topic talking about some data. And one of the data I would like to share with you today comes from State of the Global Workplace 2023 done by Gallup. Gallup is international consultancy company, you might know, and time to times they publish these state of the situation, and I was impressed by reading that the worldwide population of people, employees inside organization and company, feel engaged about the 23%. And if we drill down to Europe population, so the employees of the European population, this data is even worse. We are talking about 13%, 13%. Why I'm talking to you about engagement? Because engagement or disengagement has a cost for our organization, for every kind of organization. If you would like to deep dive a little bit on this topic, 6 seconds publish every 2 years a study, a private studies, because we collect a lot of data from our assessment. The name of the study is the Business Case 2023. We are going to put the first link in the chat, so for you to read it carefully just after this conversation. And the low engagement has a huge impact on the organization cost. The low engagement means lack of low level of emotional intelligence, so low level of communication, low level in teamwork, low level in engagement, of course. And so most of the key KPIs are, let's say, suffering, and the result is higher cost for everybody. I will suggest another, let's say, study done by 6 seconds, which is a state-of-the-art research 2024, in which you can see at the global level or at the European level the declining of the emotional intelligence through different breakdown by region, by generation, by gender, and so on. This for sharing with you that the purpose, the topic of today, purpose and belonging, is not just a nice to have purpose, but sometimes it's something that all the new organization or even the whole organization that is facing a change has to take into consideration.
And I'm not sure if you already, since I was logged off, had the interaction in the chat asking people how do they feel if they think of a time back when they felt truly that they belong at work. Did you already ask that question?
No,
You haven't?
no, please, Ila.
Okay, so one thing that we'd like to share with you and ask you, in order to really live together this journey about designing with heart in mind an organization, is think of a time that can be recent or remote when you really felt that you belonged at work, and what did you feel? What were your feelings and emotions? And maybe you can type this in the chat. I remember personally the first time that I joined 6 Seconds, and for me it was definitely joining a community, and so I felt safe, I felt driven, I felt energized and engaged, of course, but also I felt that my contribution had a value. And so I felt that I could be vulnerable and courageous at the same time. So these are the feelings that I experienced, and maybe Giovanna and Tina, you also felt similarly in similar situations.
Actually, definitely like this feeling of aliveness also, right? Like blending into this space and then connecting with like the certain purpose and the people. And I mean, it's not the people, it's probably like these kind of shared values and the mission and the vision, right? And then you're blending in and you're having like this impact together, which is like the feedback of the system you are getting, right? Like, oh, I think there's like I'm on the right track, right? And that is like a very special energy, right? You to tap into, because it gives you so much clarity, it gives you so much direction, it makes you so efficient and productive, and because collaboration is happening on a different level, because communication is happening on a different level, right? Like and that's a very unique kind of a place to be in, it feels like. But if we would be able to multiply that, right, to live that in many different kind of organizations, I think we would be better off.
Yeah, and I might add that the way I felt very engaged I was when I was a student. I was a university student and I was a part-time worker also. So I was very young. And I was working for a very small company, family company. And I felt that those people trusted me despite my age, despite my zero experience, and they gave me, let's say, the ownership of a certain project, and I felt so engaged that honestly, I feel listened, I feel observed, but at the same time followed by other people, and that was a memory that it's with me since a lot of years. And it's a very good emotion that I replicating here in 6 seconds in some way.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I hope that there are also comments in the chat and sharing, how people are feeling. And we'd like to share with you then how to practically go into the designing of an organization with heart in mind. We want to share a process. And so we can show the first slide. We want to share with you our model that is also a process. You can see that this is a circular process, and you can start from wherever. And we decided to start from the blue area, from the what, that here is called know yourself or self-awareness. we'd like you to think of organizations just like living beings, just like ecosystems. So this model that is for individuals, but also for teams and organizations, it starts with understanding and asking inside the organization, what are we feeling? So the organization is not only made of products, processes, procedures, departments, products, as said, but of course we say people. But inside people and between people, there are relationships. And people think, feel, and act. And especially they feel, think, and act according, first of all, to their emotions. And so the first part, the first thing that we want to share with you is that we need to increase the awareness of how people are feeling inside the organization. And the reason why is in the second slide. So there's a direct, if you can show the second slide, yes, there's a direct correlation between how we feel and the success of an individual, teams, and organizations. This chart shows, and you can see all these little dots, these are people. It simply says that there is a direct correlation between emotional intelligence, so integrating emotions into our decisional process, and success. And for success or performance, in 6 seconds, we mean effectiveness, so the ability to achieve results, but not only. We combine this with well-being, the well-being of all the people inside the organization, with relationships. So what kind of sustainable and thriving relationships all the people inside the organization are living, experiencing? And also, are we satisfied? How is the quality of our life? And it says that 55% of the change in the performance is driven by emotional intelligence. So this is the first part of this model, just to remind us that emotions drive people and people drive performance. And this is based on our research. The research that Gio shared a few minutes ago, and is the state of the art, and also our SAY assessment. The sample of our EQ assessment is based on 500,000 people. So it's a very large sample, and it really goes with people from all over the world. So it's a pretty accurate correlation. So people and emotions are correlated, and if it is true that emotions drive people and people drive performance, as we say, emotions drive performance. So this is the first step, the first part of this process. Then we can go into the second part of the model. No, the slide, it's okay. It's the second. You can go back or even stop sharing, because Gio now is going to share with us the how. So what we discussed about the what, and now we can talk a little bit more about the how, so the intention and the choice.
And usually when we talk about the how, we have much more question than answer, because what alternatives do we have in order to create an organization with the heart in mind, so with emotional intelligence embedded in our organization? And another question for you, you might share your thoughts in the chat, is this one. What key drivers would you like to consider if you have to design an organization with the emotional intelligence embedded? I'll leave you a few seconds to write some comments in the chat. And I would like to use this metaphor as a human being, as an individual. When we do not feel at ease, when we feel a little bit sick or something that is not working in our body, in our system, We usually go to the doctor, and the doctor said, okay, these are the blood tests that you should go in order to understand your healthy status. And Ilaria already talked about the first model we have inside 6 Seconds, is the in-house model that we develop, and it's the SAY KCG model with the SAY assessment. And aside of this model, 6 Seconds develop another model that is much more focused on the organizational side of the company. It's called Vital Signs. Through the Vital Signs and its assessment, of course, we are going to talk about 5 K drivers of organizational vitality. And these drivers are change, we talk about change, motivation, execution, teamwork, and last but not least, trust. Trust is like the cherry on the cake because literally is the 5th driver that talks and touches in contact with all the other 4s. Why we are talking about vital signs? Because in order to understand how we have to act in order to change in something or improve in something, we need to get the screen of our situation, of the organizational situation. And even when we have our blood test done, the question is, what do we need to take into consideration? It's a matter of trust. In our organization, the driver trust is a little bit weak. It's a matter of change. It's our, let's say, willingness to face to a new change or a big change inside the company. It's a matter of motivation, execution, teamwork. Question. Then, of course, any organization has to take in consideration. And because we are talking about change, another pillars we use at 6 Seconds to work inside organization in order to make a change happening is our beloved and super well-known change map. The change map talks about change, and we are going to put another link in the chat. It's a video done by our Natalie Reutemann. He's one of 6 Seconds Europe and worldwide member, and she described the power of the change map. The change map is a virtuous circle, so it's not a linear model, but it's a circle model. And in any circle, we have 3 phases. Engagement.
Sorry, Gio, we can put the slide on so people can see the change map.
Sorry?
Yeah.
It's the 3rd slide, Milena. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So as you can see, we have 3 let's say, elements: engage, activation, and reflection. But what is very important when we're talking about change and people are inside this change is really taking care of the emotional transition. Engaging people means transform frustration into excitement, fears into courage, and judgment into curiosity. Why I'm telling you this? Because in redesigning, in changing, we need to consider how people feel. Emotional intelligence came again into our speech. And university studies say that 70%, so 70% of change, of any kind of change, failed due to this lack of engagement, due to the fact that there is a lack in communication, the lack of leadership, of emotional intelligence leadership. And so the people are still at the very beginning of the process, not at all engaged, and so their emotional impact on the design change can really bring the change to a failure. I swear this is the last link we are going to share with you. If you want to get more insight about how we work inside the organization in order to apply what we share today, what me and Ilaria share today inside the company, you can really go in our EQB's blog and see many practical cases where we apply emotional intelligence inside a specific company or organization context. So that's how we conclude the how phases. And of
Yeah.
course, after a now phases, there is a why phases.
And maybe before going into that, I was just thinking, because I saw in preview, thank you, Tina and Milena, on the backside, sharing some comments. And I just would like to ask another question to the participants. What do you think trust is? I mean, Gio shared the vital signs model. We didn't show you the model because this is not the focus today. But as you said, at the core of the vital signs of an organization, there's trust. So what do you think it is? Your definition of trust, and maybe Milena, if you can, maybe, or you, Tina, you can read if there's some comment, interesting comment and definition. If you could read it, because I can't read very well. I'm connected by my phone and I don't see all the words. So if there's a definition or something coming up, just let's read it together. Just a few seconds to answer the question. And trust actually creates the conditions for a safe environment. So we actually talked and spoke of organizations just like ecosystems. And trust, as you probably all know, is the key element to create safety inside an organization.
I may share that for me, trust is, let's say, when I feel safe, even when I do mistake, or there is something that is not 100% well performed. If inside an organization, I can have the freedom to do mistakes and without any negative or dramatic impact, I feel this is also a meaning for me of trust and also to express my divergency. I mean, I'm not thinking the same of you, but my idea is welcome.
Yeah, there's a neuroscience of trust, and I see now that there's a comment. Can you just read it for me, please?
Yeah, there is a comment say that from Bernard Trust, I can count on you to support and care for me and our relationship. For example, I can trust you to let me know if things, oh my God, are going off track.
Yeah. So as you all are sharing,
Safe.
trust. Yeah, trust. It creates, as said, the condition of safety and the possibility to innovate, and making mistakes, and through making mistakes, innovate, because this is the trial and action process. But the key thing is that trust is an emotion, is one of the 8 primary emotions. And we never shared this, but that's why trust is at the core. Trust is really what in the Plutchik model, for example, or other models that you can find even online and that the psychologists define and designed, is at the core. And it's again one of the 8 primary emotions. So again, trust leads from the heart, from the core of the organization.
I find this so. I would just like to tap in here, Ilaria. I find this so interesting because we were talking actually within the EODF about our core values, and somebody brought up trust, and I argued it because I said trust for me is a result. because it's a feeling of, like this, I trust you, you trust me, we are in a trusted environment, but it's not happening like overnight. And then yesterday I was in the call with somebody who starts every conversation literally with "I love you." And it's so funny and so like refreshing, because it sets a certain stage. It's like saying "I see you," right? And I think it's kind of like comparable with trust as well, because it's like I trust in myself, in my ability to be present. I trust in life. I trust in you. I trust in this kind of, it's like somehow showing up somewhere without a bias, which creates a lot of safety because you start together from a foundation of trust, right? And I think for the longest time, I thought that's not how it works, because it's like more, it needs to be earned, or it needs to be, so I'm still
I
um
know, and it's beautiful what you shared. That it's the trust is a result, and it can be at the very beginning, in the sense that, as shared also previously about awareness. If you think that all the individuals inside an organization, and so also the organizations, they can choose how they think, how they act, and also how they feel. You can choose to be trustful in when you interact with people. You can choose to think then in a certain way and be driven into the action by your trust. So this is the revolution, that we can choose the way we feel, and it's possible. It's possible, and probably it's important because of what we shared, because emotions drive people and people drive performance. So it's really a responsibility that we can have to trust our people, to trust ourselves first, and then trust others in their authenticity, their vulnerability, the possibility, again, to make mistakes, but also to create the new and to innovate. This is probably what also in our process we try to integrate inside every kind of change. Okay, starting from how do we feel about this change? Let's discuss about this and put trust at the core.
And Tina, let me add, if I have 1 second.
yes.
Yesterday, I was talking with a CEO of an Italian company about trust, and he told me, I have to give those people trust. I have to trust in these people. Trust is not a common thing that you share with others. You build trust. So it's not one way road, but it's a double way road. So I give you trust, I feel trusted, and vice versa. So as someone wrote in the chat, it's an emotion, and so we need to understand the message behind this emotion. I don't feel safe, I don't trust you. If I feel safe, I start trusting you, but it's a process. I cannot give you trust. I have to build the feeling of trust and the culture of trust in any kind of environment we have been living to.
I'm
And this,
wondering.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tina.
I'm wondering because when we talk about emotional intelligence, it often feels like it's this very long way and path we have ahead, right? To bring that into organizations, to bring that in all kind of other social systems as well. And now we're talking about it like almost it's a given, like because we have it inside of us somehow. We just choose to tap into that emotion and bring it out there, bring it to that system, set a certain stage, and out of this space we start creating, we start designing organizations, we start to collaborate, co-create, and have finally the impact together we want to have. We just need to start. Is it that easy, or um,
No,
6 billion questions.
no,
So, Tini,
no.
as you said, everybody has an emotional intelligence. We are human beings, so we have emotional intelligence inside. But it's like a human being, we have muscle, but sometimes there are some muscle very strong and some muscle that don't even know that we have this kind of muscle because we don't train it, we don't practice. So to answer to your question, emotional intelligence is a long way pathway. You have to be consistent, you have to practice, you have to learn about what you do, and you have to practice it because it's really part of our routine. So I don't want to be holistic, too much holistic, but it's really part of our routine, even inside organization. Giving feedback, talking with our colleagues in a certain way, deserve engagement, deserve energy, time. So yes, it's not easy. Absolutely, it's not easy, but it's
And
not
I
even
love this.
impossible.
You know, you're training the muscle. Like just today I had a conversation with a friend and he said, I felt so emotional and I really didn't like that feeling. You know, it's like, a man, and I'm like, well, but it actually makes you so much more vulnerable. It's like so much guidance, like that. If you tap into it, have so much more clarity and being guided through life that it makes so much sense to sit with it now because it gets easier as well, right? Because you're training a muscle. So I love this that you said that, Joanna. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And this long journey, this EQ journey, this trust journey, it's also inside organization, probably connected to the art of listening. So inside organization, we talk a lot, we do things, we have to-do lists, right? And at 6 seconds, we always say, why don't we create a to-be list? And among this, all the items, we should have the listening, active listening, active listening to the feelings of the other team members, the organization in the whole system. And listening also is hard. It's hard to put in place and also to embrace and to, just offering space for others to express what they really think, or even just to take the time to reflect. We are very much into moving fast. So the culture of listening should be embedded into the culture of the organization as a culture of trust. And I just wanted to share with you, but I don't I can't do it with my phone, but you can log and connect to our 6seconds.org website, and you can download a research called the neuroscience of trust. So you can see the connection and knowing a little bit more about these neurohormones that is trust and what it creates in terms of for individuals, and how it is directly connected to the retention, the motivation of employees and their retention. So the change map that Gio shared about the cycle of resistance, so all the unpleasant emotions, frustrations, judgment that she shared. And trust supports actually the passage from the cycle of resistance to the cycle of engagement. So that document is really relevant. It's a research, and you can download it from our website. So we are into the last part of our cycle, of our process, the why, as Gio said. And so again, an organization and the members of the organization should ask themselves, what is our why? And so I'd like to ask you also in the chat, what is your organizational why? Why you are in that organization, and what is the why of your organization? Are you aligned with that? And when we talk about why, we talk about, actually, we talk about purpose. We talk about connecting with what really matters, with what matters to you as an individual, as a member of the organization, and what really matters to the organization. Are these two long term, maybe goals connected, aligned? I know that you are for sure all familiar with the fact that we need to align values, right? So if you don't feel that your values are, somehow embraced by a company or by a team, you don't feel okay. You don't feel that you belong. But there are not only values. There's the also see that our contribution is part of the organization. That's why we were saying that we need to see if whatever we do, it's part of the change. So am I allowed to be part of this? Am I visible in this sense? And so what matters means also understanding that the organization should have a social and ethical approach and responsibility. If an organization is an ecosystem, each ecosystem impacts communities. And so your organization, our organization, EODF, is impacting every day little or big communities. Are we okay with that? How are we doing this? Are we discussing this during our individual performance review? Is your manager asking you constantly, okay, are you achieving these goals? Okay, are you aligned still with what matters inside our organization? And are we sharing with you the same values that we had at the beginning? So we need to create a pervasive culture of somehow purpose, and the purpose will then drive belonging. And I feel that, the question that I asked you at the beginning, how did you feel when you uh, remember a moment in which you felt you belonged? So all the emotions. This is again, it's circling back and say, okay, the whys, our what matters to us is connected to how we feel about that why, how we feel about our contribution and the contribution as an organization. And of course, it's not easy, as Tina was saying, it's a long journey. And we usually say the process is the content and the way, and no way is the way, in the sense that everyone, of course, and every organization can choose the way they want to put in action purpose and communicate with their team members. But one thing is absolutely important, it's always asking and having check-in regularly about how we feel and if this is still connected to what matters. And in order to do this, our way at 6 Seconds is to integrate emotional intelligence. Because if you are applying empathy, optimism, if you develop emotional literacy inside your organization, so a common language based on how we feel, and then you consider the patterns that also in organizations. With Geo, we were working at 6 Seconds on the patterns of our organizations. Patterns are when this happens, we respond this way. And very often we do not respond, we react as an organization. So there are individual patterns and the collective patterns. So the collective should reflect together in order to understand what are our patterns, where are we going with this, are these patterns useful, or do we need to replace these patterns because they are not useful and they are leading us towards values maybe that that are not our values, for example, and even impacting the outcomes. And as Gio said, these competencies are just like muscles. So it's the practice of emotional intelligence. And we can measure, we can learn, and we can improve all these competencies once we are aware, once we have the intention, and once we connect this to the purpose.
We had a question from Bernard who asked if we should align organization's values to the employees' values. And I leave that to you, and I will have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah. So what we feel as said at the beginning, is that we absolutely need to feel how and align or listening to the people, employees' feelings. Of course, it's hard to align to all the values of the employees, but there's a phase in the organization that is very relevant, and it's the recruitment phase. In the recruitment phase, very often we focus on the technical skills, and maybe if the employee is, kind of adequate for the role, even with soft skills, but we do not go a lot into the culture and the values and the ethical part of it. And so also the emotional background or the emotional intelligence that the person has. So in that phase, you can understand if you can align as an organization, but more than that, if the people, the applicants, can align with the values of the organization. And we should have a discussion around that during that phase, and then regularly during, again, performance review meetings, team meetings, individual meetings. I hope I answered the question.
And Bernard, if I may add one single question, a single further topic about your question is, um, as, as a career coach, I'm volunteering myself to help new young people entering in the world market, and they have red flag about some companies. I don't want to do an application for this company because this company does not express my value. This is a further things to consider about your question. The second question is that when we when we work with companies in building something, usually the board of the companies allowed for the middle management or the union management to do some training in emotional intelligence, like saying, you go ahead and then you work for us. Sometimes the change can come from the bottom. If the major of the people can express some value, I mean, we are living in a real world, but sometimes the push for the change can come from bottom up and not only up down. So it's again how I see different movement inside a company. I don't know if I answered to your question, Bernard, but I would like to contribute also with these practical things I'm experiencing working with organizations.
I'd like to get in here because so based on my personal experience, we were very focused on aligning values and discussing them in the collective. And if people would not be a value fit, that they would leave the organization. The same with purpose. And today I feel a bit like, was that maybe not the right move? Because are we actually like creating such an alignment that drives diversity out of the window, and we're not equipped anymore for complex problem solving because we're so focused on this kind of alignment? Plus also it's very subjective. Values are very subjective. Then also purpose is very subjective, plus also very personal. Like, where's the line, right? Is it really so important that people are contributing to this big purpose of the organization? Or are we talking they're just finding purpose in different kind of things in this kind of social system and ecosystem, right? For example, I can find a lot of purpose in working with that one person. And another one might find this huge purpose in impacting the world through the product, right? So there's different kind of, I think, connections that are built with the organizations, with the people within the organizations on a level of values as well as on purpose. But would I drive somebody out of the organization because he just wants to provide for his family and finds his purpose there, right? So yeah.
Yeah,
And we
I
came
think
to another big topic to understand which are our values as a person, as a professionalist, because if I don't know what are my values, I cannot even compare if I can contribute to share my values or I can just grab value from the company I've been working for. So the first step is really to be aware of our values and then step into whatever environment we want to step in.
I also think, Tina, that what you said is really relevant, talking about diversity and also inclusion, even in terms of values. I also believe that there's a fine line between what is acceptable for a person to live inside an ecosystem, an organization. So I feel that this is really subjective. So as you said, so maybe we share different kind of values, but they can coexist. It's just like in society. Of course, we are hanging on and discuss and talk with very different people, but also we try to belong to communities, right? So the idea is, can we have different communities inside one organizations? I believe yes. The problem is, are we mature enough to be able to respect the diversity and the different kind of values, and being able to keep interacting with, again, with those competencies that I would say are also values, that are compassion, tolerance, respect, trust, and so on. So if this is possible, absolutely. And this is the aim, this is the noble goal, to have different communities sharing maybe different values, but values that can coexist, and that we can, in any case, move together as a whole, as a collective, because in the end we have the same uh, kind of long-term willingness to thrive and to do good. I think that this is the most important part. Then we can have a stress on different values. The alignment is more on the long journey. So are we going to in the same direction? Is this something that is valuable? Are we bringing value to people around us? And we do this with respect, kindness, compassion. I know that these kind of words are not very much used in the organizational language, but I see that more and more organizations are aware of this. And what Gio said is fundamental. The Gen Z and all the younger generations, they are absolutely assessing organizations and teams considering this. Am I valued? Am I respected? What is the social action of this organization? Are they working, in spaces that I don't want to be? This is something that they consider, and so we absolutely need to be aware, and also put in action policies that are, embracing this overview and different kind and diversity, as Tina, you said.
Thank you, Ilaria. Just one thing to it, because based on my own experiences, I worked in oil and gas, right? Out of the reason to actually transform this industry from the inside out, right? Huge purpose. And then wanted to connect with communities that are in regeneratives, that are, like the movements of, donut economy or whatever. And it was really interesting to see the reactions also, because it felt like a lot of like minded people are part of communities because they attract a certain, like individual also with certain values, with a certain perspective, and reject others, right? So, like, for example, oil and gas is like generally greenwashing. We don't do that. And I found this so interesting because if we really want to have systematic change, in my opinion, then we need to have an all stakeholder approach, because we're not going to switch off fossil fuels today and think, oh, now everything is fixed, right? But how are we making use of that infrastructure, of that knowledge and wisdom, and integrating like all these parts? I know we're now probably getting a little bit like off track and going in like different spheres, but I find this very interesting, like these, because I mean, we live in times now, we cannot deny on a collective level, like a lot is bubbling, right? So, and that's why obviously we are talking about these big topics of what's left. Well, emotional intelligence, right? It's like the interactions we have as human beings in times of AI, in times of collective disruption, right? So, everything we're discussing on a micro level is also happening obviously on a macro level, right? So I find this extremely interesting, also incorporating these kind of different perspectives and having, as you say, like what's the role of the individual in the collective, and how can we make sure that we have maximal collaboration and co-creation to be able to deal with complexity, right? So yeah, thank you for that. But I think this is going to be another kind of conversation, and I know that we're running late. So
Yeah.
I would also like, I think we need to wrap up very soon. So everything you would like to say, please shoot. And I would love to have another conversation with you too.
Yeah, Gio, if you'd like to, just to
No,
say,
first of all, thank you, because also the message I was reading in the chat are really high quality, and something that we really need to share and take in consideration. I know sometimes it's not easy to talk of certain word, to bring certain wording inside the organization, but I love to start this conversation showing data, because it's a matter of the fact. It's not my impression, my point of view, it's a matter of the fact. So, if we want to contribute in making the company environment more sustainable in many sense, in many way, I think as leaders, as a manager, as directors, whatever it is, to bring our own responsibility. And it's not only the responsibility of my boss, but it's also my responsibility. Leadership is not a role things, it's being a leader in whatever hierarchy status I'm acting. So this is to conclude.
yeah, and I love what you just said, Gio, about diffused leadership. And you can find this concept. I mean, many organizations are talking about that, but it's a reality. I mean, we are all leaders. Okay, so we can lead projects, we lead single actions, we lead ourselves every day out of our room and go into the work and leading our families, our group of friends, or in many multiple aspects. And uh, and this is really important. Be leaders of ourselves. I don't remember the person who shared this, but it's the reality, starting from within, starting from ourselves. And in at 6 seconds, we like closing all of our workshops or webinar with an action step. So our question for you is, what is your next step? So after listening and what we shared and what you put in the chat and read in the chat and what you learned, maybe there is one thing that you learned from this webinar. What would you like to do with this? Where to start? One single next step. Maybe you can put it in the chat. This would be nice. And we can share also ours. Tina, what could be your next step after this webinar?
I recently started a new venture, right, called Love Not Fear. And I feel like all the things that we have been discussing today, they just blend into it like 150%. And as I said before, also, it's for me like really busting my own biases, right? And based on my experience. And I think not to bring that in my new work as well, right? So it's like this really helped me to sit down, to reflect on it and say, okay, this is my truth and this is not, this is still aligned with you, this is not. And for that I'm really, really grateful for you too. And so that's definitely my next step, plus also setting up with you another session.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And if anyone put a comment, maybe we can just pick one and then thank you and goodbye for today.
Thank you to you all, and also you, Tine, for hosting us today.
Thank you, ladies, and thank you to our audience. See you soon.
See you soon
Thank you.
again.
See you
Thank you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.